But basically, he just said, throw me $20 or $40 and I'll help you. And I always fed him and all that too. So, and it'd work out pretty good. But I did that quite often because taking them parts home really made a difference on your income. And it wouldn't be all the time you do it. You do it like maybe twice a month or something like that. But it still helped out. It was, some extra funds that you could get. And actually, like I said, the check would be more than my weekly check. So it really helped, but it'd be a rough day the next day because I remember, I was a painter at Paintworks and I'd be out there and my supervisor was Larry and he would make me a cup of coffee, bring me a cup of coffee out to where I was at because he knew I was tired, He was a cool dude too. He ended up leaving, him and his wife, they ended up leaving and I think he said he went to open up a paint shop in Florida. Then after I worked for him, I had left the paint company, went and did some other stuff. Then I wanted to get back into the paint company, so I called up there. And he said he didn't have no opening at that point, but he said my friend is down on 9 Mile Road, and he's the supervisor of a paint shop over there. And he said they basically do the same kind of stuff. He said, I'm going to call them, then I'll call you right back. So he called him, and he called me back. He said, hey, he wants you to, can you start Monday? And I was like, yeah, I can start Monday. Because I didn't have to be trained or anything. I already knew how to paint and stuff like that. So he actually landed me the job on 9 Mile Road with his friend. His name was Mark. And he's a cool dude too. I remember I drove the forklift some in there, and when I did, because actually the painter had to drive the forklift when you had to go get parts. And then you had a lot of women that worked on the line, and they would get the parts out of the metal crates and hang them on the line and stuff like that. I remember one time it was winter time, and it gets icy and snowy out in Detroit in the winter. And this is right on 9 Mile. And the paint shop's close to DeQuinder, but they got like a restaurant right on the corner of DeQuinder and 9 Mile, and then the paint shop was behind it. And I had to go out. The people parked on the side of the paint shop, and it had a big bay door you open. You had to go out there with a forklift to get the metal baskets and stuff like that and bring them in. One time I went out there and I got too close because right at the curb is the main road, which is 9 Mile. Traffic's pretty heavy on that street. And I went to back up with that forklift and I slid right out into the road. And luckily, nothing was coming when I actually slid into the road. And I finally got it go up. It wasn't like a hill or anything, but it was just snowy and icy. But luckily, I finally got it off the road. But that was a scary event right there because if some cars would have came when I slid out on the road, they would have hit the forklift. But it probably would have did more damage to the car than anything because the forklift's pretty heavy. But I had worked there for a while, and then that company had another company on 10 Mile Road, but it was like a good ways down 10 Mile Road. And worked there for a little while. And that owner of that paint shop, when I was first started working there, I was catching a bus. And I'd catch a city bus down Fort Street from Woodmere and Fort Street, catch the bus all the way down to Woodward, and then I would get a transfer, and then I'd get on a bus at Woodward and go all the way down, past 8 Mile, and then I would get off on 9 Mile. And then I would get a transfer. In the winter, I'd get a transfer and get on another bus on 9 Mile straight to the paint shop. But in the summer, sometimes I would walk down 9 Mile and just ride 2 buses. But I remember riding a bus to Paintworks before too, and that was down Fort Street, up and get a transfer, get on another bus, go to up Woodward to 9 Mile, then get another transfer, go to 9 Mile, down to DeQuinder, and then get another transfer and get on a bus on DeQuinder up to 10 Mile, and I would get off there and just walk. It's like, I don't know, 2 or 3 blocks to Riggs. And but then, them city buses used to be a journey, because not only, was it changing a lot of buses and stuff trying to go to work, and then you had to do the same thing when you went home too. But not only that, just riding the city buses alone, there's just not alone like being on the bus alone, but I'm just saying in general, riding them city buses every day was something new on the bus. You know what I mean? Like, you'd see a lot of stuff. You see like people get into arguments. You'd see people get into fights. You'd see people get kicked off the bus. And just riding many buses I rode in Detroit City and outside the Detroit area, you see a lot of shit go on. And the reason I'm laughing is because, I've seen some weird stuff on the buses, and you just couldn't help but to laugh, it'd be funny, But it was just an adventure alone, just going to work and coming home from work. It was just an adventure. But eventually, I had found a car for sale for $250. No, $275. And it was a Chrysler Diplomat, 2-door, sunroof, looked pretty good. For a Detroit car, it looked pretty good. Let's put it that way. It was clean inside, but it had rust around the wheel wells and around the bottoms of the car. But not too massive. It did have like surface rust. But there were some cars that had rust so bad, it was just, the body was like gone, you know what I mean? And that was just from all the salt they put down in Detroit City in the roads. That salt just eat up a car, And some people would like rinse their car off, every so often. But people who didn't rinse their car off, that salt would just eat the car up, And that's how you get all that rust and all that stuff on the cars, But anyways, dude had loaned me the money to buy. I told him I found a car, and I wanted to borrow the money to buy it. I actually told my supervisor, and he talked he talked to the owner, and the owner told him to have me come to his office. And when I went to his office, he loaned me the money to buy the car, which was a good thing, because I was getting very tired of riding on them buses, like I was doing. Because it was just, you know, it would just wear you down, really, just ride all them buses to work and then all the buses back, and which means you had to get up extra early, to make it to work on time and stuff like that. Especially in the mid-winter when it's 0 or it's in the teens or 0 or below 0 degrees, and I actually dressed warm, but you had to get out there and wait on the bus to come. And then you could ask the bus driver for a schedule, and it would tell you when the bus is around about what time the bus is going to hit that spot, So then once you did that, then you was able to time it pretty good. And you'd have to wait on the bus a little bit, but it wouldn't be very long because you had that schedule, and not unless something crazy happened, the bus broke down or something like that, then you might as well just call it a day, because or you could stay out there and wait for the next bus to come through. It was up to you, but as cold as it was, you wasn't about to stand out there too long. If that bus didn't come, you just call it a day, and you wouldn't wait on another bus. But they came pretty frequently. I think I remember missing a bus one time and just waited, and then another bus came. I just don't remember the time frame, and I think that was only because it was payday on Friday, and I was determined to get out to the company so I could get my check. So I believe that was the only reason that I did that, because it was so cold. You just could not stand to be out there that long. You know what I mean? You know, it just gets definitely cold in Detroit, and but nowadays you got that Lyft and Uber and all that, and then you got the DoorDash and all that kind of stuff. If we had all that stuff back in the day, it would have been smooth for a lot of people. But now today's time, it's pretty convenient for a lot of folks today. And there's just so many different ways to make money now. And, it's a different time, just put it that way, compared to the time that we had in Detroit. And it was a hustle doing all kinds of stuff in Detroit, compared to today. The kids don't know what it's like, because we just lived in a different time zone, different, as kids today, they got it made. They don't realize they got it made, but they really do have it made. But it's just interesting things, stories that I have, and it's been some journeys though on them city buses, And a lot of folks did, a lot of folks rode the bus, but it would be like a lot of them just do a straight shot to where they needed to go, And then some people would do, a straight shot, then maybe a transfer to get to where they was going. But the amount of buses I was riding was, I thought it was crazy, but that's just how I had to do it in order to get out to where I was going. But that was interesting. So that being said, I'm gonna leave that right there, and like I said, subscribe, hit the like and the notification bell, support the channel. Leave your comments or thoughts. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Share the video, and just stay with me on this journey. And you never know what you're gonna be hearing, or so it's better to stay with it, and different things that come up and stuff like that. So that being said, I'm gonna leave it there. I appreciate all y'all that's listening and stuff like that, and just stay with me on this journey. This is Detroit's Darkest Times. We out.